The very first supervillain of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, Obadiah Stane, made his debut in the 2008 movie Iron Man. The film only kept some of Obadiah's original backstory from the comics. It didn't just leave some details out, but actively changed the character to better fit the narrative. Of course, the Iron Monger is not as different from his comics counterpart as certain MCU characters are, but there are a few key points of contrast. In the comics, Obadiah Stane and Tony Stark are not friends who become enemies. Stane is the head of his own company, and he forces a hostile takeover of Stark Industries, instead of sabotaging Tony's work with a calculated betrayal. An even bigger difference between his arc in the comics and in the MCU lies in how exactly he dies. While the villain is electrocuted to death by Pepper Potts and Tony Stark through the arc reactor in the movie, he chooses to commit suicide in the comics. He removes his helmet and fires a repulsor blast with his armor at his own head in Iron Man number 200, published in 1985, in one of the most shocking villain send-offs of the decade. As we'll discuss later on in other entries in today's video, the Obadiah Stane from Marvel Comics was a powerful businessman obsessed with chess. He ran his own team of hired criminals and had connections with other supervillains. This evil mastermind side of Obadiah Stane was lost in the MCU. In Iron Man, there are no so much references to his comics counterpart. The movie didn't have time to explore that part of his personality. Played by Jeff Bridges, Obadiah Stane had one of the shortest runs in the franchise. He died at the end of Iron Man, the only movie he appears in. What MCU fans may not know is that this short run on screen actually mirrors the villain's short run in Marvel Comics. Obadiah Stane first appeared in Iron Man number 163, published in July 1982. He was a complex presence in Iron Man comics for 3 years, until his final appearance in Iron Man number 200, published in August 1985. The comic book with Obadiah Stane's death is also the one where the Iron Monger armor is seen for the first time. Interestingly, Iron Man number 200 is a clear inspiration for the ending of Iron Man. The MCU film's final confrontation is marked by Obadiah Stane fully becoming the Iron Monger. He attacks Tony with his larger and much more powerful Iron Monger armor, yet gets defeated and decides to commit suicide. Considering he has such a short run in the comics, dying in the same issue that he debuts his Iron Monger suit, it makes sense to adapt the character's arc in a way that he also dies soon after becoming the Iron Monger. While other villains are ultimately underused when Marvel Studios decides to kill them off after only a few projects, Stane actually fits a one-movie arc. Seeing Obadiah Stane and the dude from The Big Lebowski, it doesn't even seem like both characters are played by the same actor. Jeff Bridges is known for his immense talent and always working hard to prepare well for his roles. In preparation for Iron Man, the actor decided to get into costume early on. He grew a beard and shaved his head like he would eventually need to do to play the character. He also did some research on the Book of Obadiah, hoping to learn more about the origin of the name of his character. Bridges was reportedly surprised by its heavy themes of divine retribution. By understanding the themes of that book of the Bible, the research helped the actor better understand what Obadiah Stane represented in the story. The biblical book warns against pride and revenge, two major driving forces behind the supervillain's transformation into the Iron Monger. Although we have discussed how short his comic run is, according to Jeff Bridges, Obadiah Stane was initially scripted to survive the arc reactor shock at the end of Iron Man. In the final scenes, the first idea was to have the Iron Monger armor empty when it's finally opened. However, it was later decided that killing off the villain would be better since Marvel Studios already knew they wanted Iron Man 2 to have a different antagonist. This kickstarted a pattern in the MCU in which villains often die in their debut. It also happened with Whiplash right away in Iron Man 2. Ivan Vanko self-destructed in Iron Man 2. The Red Skull vanished in Volmir through the Tesseract in 2011. Captain America: The First Avenger. Ultron was destroyed by Vision in the end of the Avengers, Age of Ultron. Caecilius is immortal but became forever trapped in the Dark Dimension after Doctor Strange. Killmonger committed suicide in Black Panther just like Stane does in the comics, and the list of short-lived villain goes on. While it's true that Obadiah Stane's run in the comics is particularly short, which explains a short MCU run as well, killing him off also meant a few narrative dead ends. Since Thanos, it seems like the MCU is listening to fans, and won't insist on this pattern of killing off villains way too soon. Nothing like a major unresolved childhood trauma to explain a character's descent into villainy, and that's exactly the case with Obadiah Stane. His tragic past involves witnessing his own father accidentally shooting himself in front of him. His father, Zebediah Stane, was an alcoholic and a gambler. One day when Obadiah was still a child, Zebediah won a big amount of money gambling. He was certain his luck had finally changed, and decided to play Russian roulette by himself to prove it. Upon firing the gun with a single bullet, Zebediah instantly killed himself in the first round of the game. The young Obadiah stood there in shock at the scene. After the sudden death of his father, Obadiah grew up in orphanages. Once Obadiah was older, he rationalized the event and came to the conclusion that his father had realized he would never beat the odds and had intentionally committed suicide. Regardless of his father's true intentions, this particular realization would eventually influence his son's decision to commit suicide, as we've mentioned that he did. The psychological trauma of losing his father the way he did caused Obadiah to lose all of his blonde hair and go bald. This was yet another traumatizing situation for the young Obadiah, who would struggle to fit in. Little by little, Obadiah learned how to manipulate others to obtain better outcomes in life. He evolved into a ruthless manipulator who studied his enemies to exploit his weaknesses. He also developed a talent for playing chess and became obsessed with the game. He began to apply the methodical planning required to excel in chess in his real life, taking manipulation to a new level. He took things too far, using violence and psychological manipulation to his advantage in chess. For example, he once felt threatened by a chess opponent, and he killed the boy's dog so the boy would be distracted during their scheduled chess match. Stain's obsession with control and strategy continued to go down a villainous path when he formed the Chessmen, a themed team of mercenaries and assassins named after chess pieces like Bishop, Knight, and Rook, who first appeared in Iron Man Volume 1, 163, July 1982. Each Chessman member had specific roles to fit their label. Knights rode anti-gravity steeds, Bishops used shock staffs, and Rooks operated torture chambers. The Chessmen were not major villains in their own right, but they worked for Stain and reflected his brutal strategies. They served as Stain's enforcers in his campaign to destroy Tony Stark. Their introduction emphasized his psychological warfare tactics, with the chess metaphor underscoring how he treated people as pawns to sacrifice.
You can't afford to be this naive.
With Obadiah Stane dying at the end of Iron Man, the MCU may never be able to explore connections between the supervillain and other characters in the shared universe. One of the most interesting connections he had was with Norman Osborn, the Spider-Man villain known as the Green Goblin. In early Marvel comics featuring Obadiah Stane, he crossed paths with the equally ruthless Norman Osborn in elite business circles before either of them became actual supervillains. Stain is also directly connected to Justin Hammer, although the villains never met. After Stain's death, Justin Hammer acquired the majority of shares in Stain International. If the MCU had not killed the Iron Monger off in his debut, these connections could have been explored later on in other movies.
It's impossible. Tony Stark was able to build this in a cave!
Like most characters in the Marvel Universe, Obadiah Stane also has more than one version in the multiverse. We have been discussing only the Iron Monger from Earth 616, the main Marvel Universe, but there are other variants of Obadiah Stane out there. In the Ultimate Iron Man comics, retconned to be set on Earth 55,921, readers meet a teenage Obadiah who develops a hatred for the Stark family after becoming convinced that Howard Stark killed his father, Zebediah Stane. In the new Ultimate Universe, also known as Earth 1660, he debuts and dies in the same issue, Ultimate Invasion number 2, published in July 2023. In that universe, he is a hero, and Tony Stark's godfather. He died in battle, fighting the Maker and Kang. In Iron Man, Fast Friends, set in the main Marvel Universe, the comics expand on the MCU version of events between Tony Stark and James Rhodes. Obadiah is referenced as a weapons dealer long before becoming the Iron Monger in the 2008 film, doubling down on the idea that Stain followed in Stark's footsteps before becoming his rival. Various parallel universes seen in other media outside comic books have their version of him as well. In Armored Adventures, Stain is quite similar to his MCU persona, while in future Avengers, he's only referenced through Zeke's flashbacks to when his father was alive. He only briefly appears in his Iron Monger suit in both comics and the MCU, but in the 2014 animated series Marvel Disc Wars: The Avengers, Obadiah only appears in full Iron Monger armor, never revealing his true appearance in that reality. He appears briefly in the mobile game Marvel Future Fight and console games like LEGO Marvel Superheroes. Obadiah Stane also appears in the What If animated series. In the episode What If the Red Guardian stopped the Winter Soldier, Obadiah goes by the alias Rock. That variant made a deal with Hydra to have Howard and Maria Stark assassinated, but his plan was interfered with by the Red Guardian and the Winter Soldier. He is also seen in the episode What If Killmonger rescued Tony Stark, where he plotted with the Ten Rings to have Tony Stark assassinated. Stark is captured by the Ten Rings, but instead of developing the Mark I prototype to flee, he is rescued by Eric Killmonger. Killmonger also exposes Obadiah Stane's role in orchestrating the attack, which leads to his arrest. By the end of the episode, Stane is alive and Stark is dead. These appearances confirm that despite his short-lived role in the main timeline, Obadiah remains influential across Marvel's interconnected media.
Listen to me, Tony. We're a team.
And Stane's legacy within the main timeline also continues even after his death. The Disney Plus series Hawkeye includes a moment where Kate Bishop hits with an arrow the bell of Stane Tower, a campus clock tower built in honor of Obadiah Stane back in 2006. This Easter egg is easy to miss, but reminded the most attentive fans of the villain's reputation as a great philanthropist and innovator before becoming the Iron Monger. While he's rarely mentioned by name in later MCU entries, his actions are implied to have influenced Tony's transformation into Iron Man, and has inspired other villains to use iron armors too. Without Obadiah's betrayal, Tony may never have had the final push that turned him into Iron Man. Fans have long debated the possibility of Jeff Bridges returning to the role now in the MCU, particularly in projects like Armor Wars or Iron Heart. For now, these are just rumors and wishful thinking, as there are no signs of Obadiah Stane ever coming back. Yet, despite his absence, the villain will never be forgotten. His rise marked the birth of Iron Man, and his downfall marked the end of Stark Industries' weapons manufacturing and the beginning of Tony's humanitarian journey. At the same time, we should never say never. Marvel is known to bring dead characters back to life when needed. Also, with Avengers: Secret Wars, we could see a variant or multiple variants of Obadiah Stane return on Battleworld. Marvel already has the versions of Obadiah found on Earth 595921 and Earth 6160, and the franchise could also go with a new version of the Iron Monger that has never been seen before. While this twist could be cool, it would possibly lack the emotional impact that this return would have had if Tony Stark was still alive. Still, the MCU has thrown many twists our way already, and the Russo brothers could have something up their sleeves for Obadiah Stane in the multiverse.
Do you understand? There's nothing we can't do if we stick together.
Obadiah Stane may not have lasted long in Marvel Comics, but his legacy did. He is survived by his son, Zeke Stain, who became a supervillain as well. Zeke is an ever bigger genius, using bioengineering to give himself superhuman abilities. Unlike his father, Zeke isn't a businessman who sees Tony Stark as a competitor. Having grown up without his father since Iron Man defeated Obadiah, who preferred to die than live with this defeat, Zeke began to target Tony Stark out of revenge. In comics, Zeke explores unique technology, including biotech armor and regenerative nanotech, always aiming to have a better iron suit than Tony Stark. Bringing Zeke on board after so many years since his father died in Iron Man actually interestingly mirrors the time it took for him to debut in Marvel Comics. Zeke Stain first appeared in the issue number 8 of the Order Volume 2, published in 2008, more than 2 decades after the death of Obadiah in Iron Man number 200. Since his debut, Zeke has become a recurring Iron Man adversary. He led coordinated attacks on Stark facilities using suicide bombers enhanced with his nanobiotech, among other terrorist efforts. He represents a modern iteration of the Iron Monger, continuing his father's legacy, but fueled by revenge rather than ruthless ambition. Zeke was later recruited by the Mandarin in a major arc of Invincible Iron Man that had consequences for years, combining their forces to undermine Stark's influence. In that story, Zeke helped manipulate public perception by exposing the misuse of Stark technology. As of more recent Marvel events, Zeke Stain has been seen in the pages of Secret Empire and other stories, sometimes working alongside other tech-themed villains. His ability to better himself continually with newly developed tech has kept Zeke interesting even now, decades after his debut, as it creates the possibility of endless upgrades. Obadiah's MCU death in Iron Man seemed to close the door on potential arcs involving Stain's son, Ezekiel, especially since Obadiah died without mentioning him. However, the MCU could be including Zeke after all. Alden Ehrenreich will be playing Riri Williams' friend Joe McGillicuddy in the series, and he will be making his MCU debut in Ironheart. While his role is unclear, there were rumors that Alden Ehrenreich may be playing Ezekiel Stain when he was first cast. While Joe McGillicuddy and Zeke Stain may not wind up being one and the same, these rumors still suggest that Zeke could be joining the MCU after all. With the upcoming Ironheart premiering on June 24th, 2025, and other Iron Man legacy stories being discussed, such as a potential War Machine project, Zeke is the perfect character to connect the Iron Man movies to these new Iron heroes.
We're ironmongers. We make weapons, and what we do keeps the world from falling into chaos.
Now, we would love to hear your opinions on the Iron Monger. Do you think the character should have lasted for more than one project in the MCU? Did you learn anything new about his arc in the comics, or in alternate universes? Let's discuss the most interesting facts about Obadiah Stane and his son Ezekiel Stain in the comments below. And remember to subscribe. Until next time, thanks for watching CBR.